DJI's Osmo Action, possibly the most hyped action camera thus far of 2019. We have the GoPro Hero 7. This is supposedly going to be its biggest competitor. And because I've used a lot of DJI's products in the past, I was super curious, and now I finally got my hands on one. So let's crack the box open, see what's inside, and see what all we get with the Osmo Action. DJI did do a pretty good job with the packaging. I like the way they designed the package. It's just mostly white, it's clean, just has a picture of the Action on there with some water splashes around it. One thing I didn't love about the packaging was the side flap. So the box opens up like this, and I thought this would be more magnetic, but once I cut that tab, it just basically sits there, just flaps. But once you open up the box, it is still very clean. I actually think it's a little bit too clean. It would have been cool if they would have had something maybe down here on the bottom, on the box right here with the accessories, something to kind of make the inside of the box interesting. I feel like it's kind of boring just with just the camera there. So taking the Action out of the box, it actually feels really light. It's got the housing around it for wherever you're gonna mount it, and it mounts into all the same places that any GoPro would mount. Got the front of the Action right there. Nice big lens on it, huge front screen on it. I actually love that they put the front screen on it because I think it's something that actually sets it apart and makes it super unique, and something that I think the action cameras should have been doing for years. It does feel pretty sturdy. I mean, the lens on the front of it is metal, it's solid. You've got a good solid plastic around the edges, and then a good rubberized material around the center right here. And I think that's gonna help a lot with durability. So it feels solid, it feels good. And for me, that's an important piece of an action camera. It's gotta be sturdy because I'm gonna be taking it underwater, riding dirt bikes, mountain bikes, taking it hiking, stuff like that. So you don't have a ton of accessories that come in the box. They do include a cable, which is USB Type-C, which I actually do like. Everything seems to be kind of switching to USB Type-C. Even Apple's jumping on board with that. So glad they have the USB Type-C cable there. You have two mounting plates. So you've got kind of the rounded one for more of a helmet mount, and then you have just a circle one, which would go on any flat surface. One thing that is kind of unique to DJI and the Action is the way that it mounts and dismounts. So you have your mount right there, and then you just push right there and it spins, and that's how it mounts and dismounts. And then to mount it back on, you just put it back on, spin until it clicks. So kind of a unique way to mount the camera and have it just be a quick dismount. But that being said, you don't have to use the DJI ones. You can use anything because the housing fits with any of the other action camera mounts. Just slides in there, and then you have your screw that goes in, and it screws it into place, locks it in, and then it can be mounted pretty much anywhere you have the sticky mounting plates. The battery just slides into the bottom of the Action, and it clicks into place. There's two places where the battery clicks into place. You have one on the side right there, and then you have one on the bottom right there. I wouldn't say they're super satisfying clicks. They almost sound like it's not quite clicking in all the way, which makes me a little bit nervous, especially if I was gonna be taking it underwater. To help make sure that the battery does click in all the way, there is a little bit of an orange color on the inside of the tab right here. So if you look right there, you've got the orange tab on the inside, and when that clicks in, that orange goes away. Same thing on the one in the middle. If that's not fully clicked in, you can still see a little bit of the orange right there. And then once that clicks in, orange is gone. It's a 1300 milliamp battery, so it should last about an hour if you're shooting 4K at 60 frames, or it'll last about 135 minutes if you're shooting 1080 at 30 frames. So depending on how high the quality of video is, that's gonna dictate how much battery life you have. But even still, 60 minutes is still a pretty decent amount of time if you're shooting just pure 4K footage. Turn the display on. Seems pretty intuitive, except it's in Chinese. Okay, yeah, I don't speak Chinese. How do I change that? Chinese, English. Ah, there we go. Nope, just kidding. There we go. Make sure that when you're turning it on, you don't accidentally swipe over to some Chinese language, unless you speak Chinese, because that's what I did, and it accidentally went into Chinese and I had to reset the whole camera. So pretty intuitive display. If you swipe up, you have your video control settings. So you've got 4K, you've got a few different frame sizes available. You've got your standard 4K, 2.7K, and a 4/3 frame. 1080p, 720p, all just the available resolutions. I think most people are gonna be filming in 4K, probably either 4K 30 or 4K 60. The reason that I normally like to shoot in 60 frames per second is because it allows me to kind of fake some of the slow motion, so I can take 60 frames and I can slow that down to half speed and it still has that natural movement and that natural motion that you would have closer to like 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second. This will shoot slow motion in 124 frames or 240 frames per second. However, it doesn't let you use the rock steady in slow motion, time lapse, and hyperlapse. So if you're gonna be shooting in 120 or 240 frames per second, it's not gonna be stabilized, which kind of sucks in my opinion, because if I'm gonna be shooting slow motion, I still want that to be stabilized, even if I'm gonna take that 120 frame shot and slow it down to like 60 frames or even more, I still want it to be stabilized. But I think the best way to get around that is to be shooting 4K 60 because then you can slow it down to half speed, you kind of fake the slow motion, and you still have the stabilization enabled. If you're shooting in 4K, then you don't actually have the option for slow motion. The maximum frames per second that you can shoot in 4K is 60 frames. If you wanted to go down to slow motion, then you have to get down to 1080p, which still looks good, but you do also get the warning once you go above the 60 frames per second that EIS is no longer available. Electronic image stabilization, if you didn't know. So you can see right here, once I click over to 100 frames per second, then it gives me the warning that EIS is not available, and that goes for all these higher frame rates. If you want that enabled, you got to get down to 60 or below. Same thing with the 4K setting. It only goes to 60, that's your max frame rate is 60. So you don't have to worry about not being able to use the image stabilization in 4K because you don't have the option. Swiping down from the top gives you access to some personal controls. You can do some custom settings for different scenarios or different scenes that you film in. You also have your screen brightness control. You can lock the screen, and then you can get into a variety of the different settings like voice control, snapshot, quick switch. Wow, that's cool. I actually like that. When you turn the voice commands on, you can just say things like quick switch, and then it automatically switches to the front screen. Quick switch. Now it's on the back. Quick switch. That's pretty cool, right? The front screen is just a screen, it's not a touch screen like the back screen is. So to switch the screen, you can double tap with 2 fingers, and that will switch to the front screen. And then to switch back, you can double tap the back screen again and it'll switch back. Or if you have the voice commands enabled, you can just say quick switch and it switches for you. Guys, I think that might be my favorite feature of this camera so far. Quick switch. Quick switch. I'm a child. You do also have a button on the side right here that says QS. That's also a quick switch function. If you push it once, it'll switch the different settings that the camera is in. Or if you push and hold it, it'll switch to the front camera. Record button is on the top, right hand side, very simple, easy to see. And then you have a display button as well as your power button right here. So when you push the display button down, it will shut the screen off, like that. Push it one more time, kicks it back on. Or if you push and hold it, it'll turn the entire camera off. So there you have it. That's the Osmo Action straight out of the box, everything it comes with. As to whether or not I can recommend buying the Action, I can't say for sure yet because I haven't had any time to test it out. That's the plan for the next video. So I'm gonna take the Action and I'm gonna compare it with the GoPro Hero 7. I'm gonna look at things like stabilization, picture quality, stuff like that. And then I'll be able to say whether I like the Action or the Hero 7 better. I'm really pulling for the Action. It's the one that I want to keep. I feel like overall it feels like a better camera to me, but that's something that is gonna have to be tested. As for this one, that's all I've got for you. Thanks a ton for watching, guys. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next video where we compare the two. I'll see you next time.